Welcome back to Cut on the Diamond, a show where two athletes get together and tell stories of their careers, answer big questions like how did we get here? I'm your host, 10-season Major League veteran and failed starting pitcher Trevor May. Today, I have a guest with me that I've looked forward to chatting with for a very long time, and he was actually one of my main inspirations for having this show at all. A product of the University of North Carolina. This man was drafted in the 26th overall. Drafted 26th overall in 2006 by the Boston Red Sox. He then made his MLB debut with the Sox in May of 2009, quickly moving into the setup role for Jonathan Papelbon, my co-worker over at Foul Territory these days. So far, he has accumulated 66 saves and 475 strikeouts in his career and has showed a resilience that is truly unprecedented, completing what I believe to be the greatest career comeback in the history of baseball. He's also currently working on his first book, which we will talk about a little bit later. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce to the show Daniel Bard. Bardy, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally find some time.
Of course. When you said, hey, let me reach out in a month or so, that usually means I'll flip a coin. I might reach out or not. So It was really nice to get that text back. That was exciting.
We had good reasons, holidays.
Yeah, it was good reasons.
I was trying to figure this book thing out, and we made it work.
Well, it sounds like that's progressing a little bit. You said right before we got on the show, you threw your first bullpen today. You coming off of it was meniscus surgery and a cleanup on the flexor tendons, right?
Yeah, so meniscus, that's all good on the knee, and then I was coming back from that, hoping to play last year, and the elbow. It had been 2 years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
It was
gotcha.
The flexor tendon just coming off the bone there. Doesn't feel too good.
Nope. No, it doesn't. I was fortunate to dodge any flexor stuff, but I had my own. I like to almost break my bones. That's what I was worried about. So you're getting in shape. You're free agent right now, trying to get on with another team, dude. I mean, I would anticipate seeing some of those high velo numbers, and teams love that. So it's good to hear you're back, man. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I'm just I didn't know what else to do, so here we are, rehabbing it, seeing what happens. It was
why not?
Well, it was like either rehab it and see where things are, see how it looks, or retire hurt, which is like, I know plenty of guys do it, but I was like, the rest of my body feels really good still, so
yeah,
we're gonna rehab it. I got about 2.5 more months till I'm like cleared for games, so we'll see what happens.
Well, we're all pulling for you, myself especially, but this is not uncharted territory for you. This is something that you've done a few times at this point. So if anyone can do it, it's you. All right. So the Bard family. I played with your brother Luke. You guys grew up in North Carolina, correct? You live in North Carolina.
Yeah, Charlotte. All grew up in Charlotte.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, very cool. Okay. And so North Carolina, we start all of these kind of interviews talking a lot about kind of growing up in the area and like what was youth baseball like and how do you get into baseball? Because I think that's a hot topic right now with all the travel ball and should you specialize at 9 years old and all this kind of stuff. So North Carolina, we've had some Indianas, we've had some like Massachusetts, we've had some places that weren't super great for playing baseball year round. North Carolina, you could pull it off. So what was it like growing up in youth baseball? Was this like, were you like baseball 24/7 or were you one of the three sport guys?
Yeah, well, I have a 9-year-old now myself who's he plays baseball. He's not super into it, but I'm getting to see the new world, and I'm not sure I like it. The new world of youth baseball. So I played church league for a couple years. I played rec ball through Little League. Tried to make it to the Little League World Series. We fell way short, but we had a fun little run. Won our city or whatever. It was just like a couple more years of rec ball, probably to like 14, and then I got invited to play on a little travel AAU team, we called it, that played in like within an hour of our house mostly. And then maybe by 16 was playing on a team that actually traveled, twice a year to go to like Florida for a big tournament or something like that. So yeah, way behind what they would consider the optimal path nowadays. I was pretty much just playing my probably played 30 games a year, until I was about 15, and then it ramped up from there. But
Oh, wow.
I love to play the game always. I mean, a lot of it was we had a big side yard. Me and my brothers and some neighbors would always have tennis ball games going on in the yard. Like I remember those like all summer long, every day. We'd be out there for 8 hours a day. Sounds like super old school now, but that was it. You just kind of did that. You watched the Cubs on TV in the afternoon, and the Braves were on at night, and that was it.
Oh yeah, Cubs games.
That's right.
And TNT was the Braves. Yeah, I watched Braves
Two
games way
two
more than I
national
would have.
televised teams. Yeah,
Yeah. Yo, wow. That's crazy throwback. The old days of just going in the side yard and playing. Like we played wiffle ball constantly. That's the same thing we did. But that's interesting to hear that you did 30 games a year because that's kind of what Washington can get into. It's funny, the first 15 get rained out, and then we play 30 in the time that 15 would have taken.
yeah.
That's usually how it works. Okay, so you said one thing right at the beginning there. You said you played church league. You guys had church league baseball?
It was, yeah, I think it was a church league for like 2 or 3 years. It was like,
Okay.
I think it was the church we were going to at the time, and it was like the least competitive,
Oh yeah.
lowest
Love it.
talent level like you could possibly imagine for 7 year olds. Like these are bad 7 year olds. So that's where I got a lot of my confidence was beating up on the kids on that league. I was like,
I
I
hear
can do
that.
that. I can play a big leaguer, man.
I hear that. I grew up Mormon, and we had Mormon league basketball. And let's
Yeah.
just put it this way: half the guys in the court were wearing jeans. So,
so
uh, and I'm
you
six
know,
five, and I'm the point guard. I'm way bigger than it was. Like I'd scored 50 a game. It was a blast, though. I felt really good, and I
yeah.
wasn't even starting. Like I was like the fifth best player on my high school team, and just destroying my league.
But oddly,
Uh,
though, don't you think like you got some confidence from that?
oh yeah, and
Like
only
you
that,
kind
it
of
was the
thought, like,
most fun.
yeah,
Everyone had a
as
blast.
as like a
Everyone
ten
was
year
having a
old,
great time.
12-year old, like everyone's searching for something they're good at. And you may not have been actually that good at basketball, but you thought you were at the time, and like that made you feel good.
And sometimes that's all. That's the
That's
only
all
thing
that
that matters.
matters.
It's all that matters. That is all that matters. All right. So you said it's kind of picked up a little bit when you got into your teens and the high school years. It's usually when it does. When did you know that like, wow, this is like I could go to college and play. Like I could go D1. Were you like one of those late bloomers, or were you like the local stud
Yeah,
the whole
no,
time and it just
I
kind
would
of
say
happened?
more on the late bloomer side. I was like a good player. I was probably a better hitter till I was like in high school. Um, and I remember watching the ACC college tournament. Was in Charlotte like for 3 years, my eighth, ninth, and 10th grade year. So my dad would take us to like as many of those games as we could in that week. So we'd see Clemson, Wake Forest, North Carolina, Georgia Tech would all roll through there. And this is like gorilla ball era. So like, you know, four guys in each team have 25 plus homers. Like
Oh yeah,
it was a fun time for college baseball.
yeah,
Roided up dudes swinging like minus sevens. Um, but yeah, like I remember going to those tournament games at the old Charlotte Knights Stadium, which is out in the middle of nowhere, and like falling in love with ACC baseball. Like specifically, I didn't care about any other conference. I was like, I don't know which one of these teams is going to want me, but like if I can, I want to play here. I want to play in this conference. And
all right.
yeah, so that was kind of like, and then I was like, I still didn't think I was good enough. I was barely playing, as a JV, ninth grader on JV, and had a long way to go. I think by my junior year, I was starting to touch 90, which at that time would get you a lot of looks. So
Yeah.
that's when the attention kind of came in, and it happened fast, man. I went from like fighting for playing time on my high school team to potentially being a first round pick out of high school in like 2 years. So
Getting lots of letters,
got a
right?
few
From all
letters.
over the
Yeah,
place, right? Crazy numbers
it's
of
a fun
letters.
time. Yeah.
It is a fun time. It's probably I was just I this happened the other day. I was just reminiscing about like walking our head coach for our high school team was our guidance counselor. So his office was right by the front of the school. So I'd walk by it every single day. So I'd walk when I walk in, he'd have like 2 for me. When I walked out, he'd have like 4 for me. And it'd be
Yeah.
just from like schools, and then pro teams started to get there. And that's just, of course, they're just questionnaires, and you're just filling out the same information over and over again. But it felt cool. You felt like they knew who you were. And that's how it used to be back then. And now there's apps, and I mean,
Yeah.
I think they still do letters, but like not near as much. Um,
I
okay.
bet the Rockies still do letters.
Oh, the Rockies definitely still do letters.
They're old school.
They are old school. I can't wait to hear
Yeah.
about that a little bit too. Um, okay, so more of a late bloomer. Did you like go through a growth spurt? Did that happen
Yeah,
like
I
in
think
middle
it was
school?
just like I had gotten really tall 8th, ninth grade. I'd shot up to 6'2" or something like that, 6'3", and gained like no weight. So I was, I think my sophomore year I'm like 6'2", 145 pounds. You know, it was hard to get all the body parts moving in the right direction for a while. But I think that was probably it. I got to lifting some weights later in high school, and I think it finally started to pay off like my senior year.
Yeah, it's very similar to me. Same thing. I went from 5'8" to 6'3" freshman to sophomore year, and wore knee braces because everything hurt.
Oh yeah.
Another one I try to get in there every single time we do these is I love hearing stories about guys you grew up and played against, and then like especially people that we know. Like for example, in basketball, I grew up getting destroyed by Klay Thompson because I had to run around and chase him because I was the only one his height. And I once got dunked on when I was a sophomore in high school by Kevin Love when he was 6'10", 290, and he apologized because he almost killed me. But like I played against like Garrett Cole and stuff, and constantly in tournaments and things. Anyone that you grew up playing against that were like the studs that ended up being big deals, or maybe even not?
Yeah, we didn't have a ton come out of our area at that time. I remember playing against Delman Young in high school
Ooh,
in a travel ball tournament, and Delman Young was like, I think he was the number one ranked player
he
in
was a
our class
big
at one
deal.
point. Big
Yeah, he's a
deal. I mean, he was
big
like a
deal.
5-tool guy coming out of high school. I don't know what he went third or fourth pick to the Rays, I think, and he was one that I remember being excited to face him, and then he hit an absolute laser off me with a wood bat. Um, and that was kind of humbling. I was like, okay, so that's what the best in the country does. Like, I wasn't used to people turning my fastball around that easily. Um, no, I mean, as far as playing against, I'm probably forgetting somebody. Um, Steph Curry went to my high school. That's kind of a fun one.
That would be
Yeah,
that's a good tidbit.
he was
That's a good.
he
What
was
was
a
he like
skin,
in high school?
so he was a skinny freshman roaming the halls when I was a senior.
Oh
So,
wow,
and honestly, we just knew him as Del Curry's son.
really?
Um, yeah, because Del Curry, his dad, was like a stud for the Hornets,
Yeah.
the Charlotte Hornets teams that I grew up watching. So it was just like cool that a Hornets player's kid went to my school. Like, I didn't really know, we knew he played basketball, but he was literally just like this lanky 5'10" kid that could shoot, you know?
Who's pretty probably I'm assuming he's probably pretty quiet, pretty reserved. He doesn't
I
seem
think
like
so.
the
Yeah.
flashiest
I
dude.
had a brother that was, got to be pretty good friends with him. So,
I don't know how Luke never mentioned this. This is kind of
So
an interesting.
Luke played high school basketball. He was younger. He played. Uh, he was high school teammates with Seth Curry, Steph's little brother, who's also in the NBA.
Okay, I
Like
got a bone to pick.
they
How did
were
this
Luke was
never
like,
come up?
yeah, like Seth was this team stud, and Luke was like the fifth, sixth man on that team.
I knew Luke played basketball because we would chat about basketball every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's why I'm kind of disappointed by this. Dude, that's crazy. Was he even like was Steph like nasty? Did he end up
Uh,
being like really good? I know he went to
no,
Davidson, so
he
like
was the best player on the court. He was just
okay,
not that big, and he was
okay.
super skinny. He could always shoot. The thing I remember I'd come home from like college and it'd be Christmas break, and I'd go to a couple high school games, watch him play. So he would be like a junior by then, and I do remember him just doing like driving, bobbing and weaving and behind the back pass and like hitting his teammate in the head because like he didn't see the pass coming. Like that's how good his court vision was. He was just like he was playing like 3 levels ahead of everyone else on the court, including his teammates.
He's so good that his teammates can't even catch his passes. That's good.
Yeah,
That's solid. That's a good sign. But I can imagine scouts were like, "Look at this guy. How's he going to be? How's he going to be the greatest 3-point shooter of all time?
right.
How's
That's
that
why
going to happen?"
he ended up at Davidson.
Yeah. And then he hit
Yeah.
a bunch of threes, and then they
Mm,
figured it out. Um, so and then speaking of college, speaking of Davidson, you are Tar Heel. You were there with Andrew Miller, right? You're on that
that's
team.
right. Yeah, we had yeah, Andrew's definitely the biggest name. I think we had like 8 guys make it to the big leagues off the last team I played on there. It was a good squad.
It was a good squad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I am from the Northwest, so we were acutely aware of the Oregon State team at that time.
Oh my
So
god.
unfortunately, I was probably rooting against the Tar Heels, both back to back years.
Yep.
But you know what? All you guys, I would say all the guys on that team that put up numbers when it mattered, and that was in the show. So it's good to see that. Okay, so was North Carolina? When did you know that was where where you wanted to go? Because you mentioned earlier, like you didn't know which one of the ACC. You just knew ACC. And Luke also went to Georgia Tech, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Luke went to Tech. I remember coming. I was close to going to Wake Forest, North Carolina, and took a visit to Notre Dame, which was kind of just to like. I just wanted to see the. I grew up a big Rudy fan, so I was like, I got to see this place in person, and it lived up to the hype. I just didn't want to go pitch in the cold. Um, so between Wake and North Carolina, which they're both a couple hours from my house, I honestly just had a. I won't go into details, but just had a better official visit at UNC.
All
they were
right.
both
I'll
they were both good. There was just it was just we had a group of recruits that weekend at UNC, and we just had a good time together. Let's put it that. We'll leave it at that.
it could
That
be
was it.
that simple.
When you're
It could
when
be
you're
that simple.
17, I was 17 at the time. Like you're an idiot. You make decisions based on really bad information, and I did. But I'm glad I made it. It ended up being a great decision. So
I chose Washington for the same reasons. It also helped that the game I went and watched, like to make my decision to go to Washington. It was Tim Lincecum versus Brandon Morrow, and I think
that's those guys are
Lincecum
both
struck
my.
out 19.
That's those guys are both legit. Like
Yeah, not a
um,
lot of offense that day.
well, just watching Lincecum in college, I got to see him pitch in college summer ball, and he came in to close a game against us. This is in Cape Cod League, and like literally our whole team was on the fence because like they just wanted to see this guy throw. We'd like heard about him, this skinny little guy that threw 98, and he with probably the best college curveball I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I don't even think he used that when he got to the big leagues. He had the changeup.
yeah, he had the
But
Looney Tunes changeup and like a slider.
yeah, but in college it was like 98 with a 12-6 hammer, and he just banged
Yeah,
it. Like I don't need that.
straight over the top.
Yeah,
I actually know I've talked to his dad a bunch of times. They that let, let's just say put it this way: his nickname, the Freak. Yeah, that it tracks. The things those guys did to get to pitch were just. I don't think anyone's done it since. Which I mean, obviously his hips went, and now he's younger than a bunch of guys that are in the show now. So gone too soon, in my opinion. He was
I
one
don't
of my
know, man.
favorite guys to ever watch.
I didn't ever meet him personally, even though I played against him a lot. But yeah, I would have loved to see him have like a long career, man. He was so fun to watch.
Yeah, man, he could have been one of all time greats. So I mentioned already. I mentioned the heartbreaking Game 3 loss, Oregon State 3-2. But and you mentioned having all those having so many guys on that team that went to play, move on to play, and a lot of them had long professional careers. So getting ready because you got drafted after that year, correct? After the first one, and you weren't there in '07 for the second one.
That's right. Right.
So how did that experience, that like crazy electric, because the finals of College World Series are just as electric, I think, as a MLB playoff game.
Yeah, it's
It's at least,
30,000 fans. Yeah, yelling
yeah,
the whole
and,
time. It
and
was
and for
great.
your school and you're a kid, like it's even crazier, right? So
Yep.
how did that atmosphere, how did that prepare you to go move on and play? Or how did it compare? Did you ever play in a game that felt as big as that one did, or was it something a memory you could call back? Like, at least
Yeah.
I'm used to
No,
it.
I
I
don't. I
see
don't think I had played
fans.
anything close to that. I think we would get, we'd get 4,000 fans for like a rival weekend in college, which felt big, 4,000. And then we go there and
Yeah.
it's like 30 something plus national TV. It was different. And I remember it being kind of a blur, right? You're just like, it's happening so fast. You don't really have time to fully process it. You're just like, this is so cool that I get to do this, which I wish.
Yeah.
That's honestly, I'll get to this later, I'm sure, but like I use that when I'm in the big leagues and I'm about to close out a game and I start to get a little more nervous than I would like. That's my go-to, as I remind myself, like,
So cool.
it's pretty cool that I get to do this for a living. Like, any of the friends I grew up with would give their left nut to do this one time, and I get to do it 3 times a week. And that reminder is a really good, like, flip the switch. Like, I'm grateful to be here. Let's go do this. But when go back to the College World Series, you literally are just grateful. You're like, how did this happen? How did I get here? I'm here with all my best friends. We're playing for the biggest, thing in our life. And, I think it did help. I think that if it helped prepare me, it was that I had some success on that stage, and then going straight into pro ball, it was like, okay, just get me to the big leagues because I know I can do well on that big stage. It was actually hard, I think, looking back mentally, to go from working your way up the college ladder. Literally, the last game I pitched in college was in front of 30,000 people in Omaha. Then I report to the Red Sox, and you're on a backfield facing guys you've never heard of, and then they send you to this small town A-ball team where you're playing in front of maybe 1,000 people, and you kind of go backwards. And then you're thinking about the game too much instead of just being lost in the desire to win. It gives you a lot more space to like worry about your slider being perfect, worrying about your delivery. Whereas you're in front of 30,000 in Omaha, like, you don't care about your delivery. You just want to get the guy out and help your team win a game.
Yeah.
And that's such a simple mindset that I think gets lost in pro ball a lot. Even in the big leagues, you play 162 games, especially if your team's not winning. It's easy to get lost in the details and forget that you're playing a game, trying to win. Because that's how I think we all play our best baseball.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. I mean, like, the nature of pro ball too, it's just so, I mean, there is always going to be that element of like you're competing against your teammates, especially in the minors. Just you are like you're competing for a certain amount of spots. That it doesn't need to be a negative thing, but it is reality. Like there only is so many. You can't all go. Most of you can go if you wait long enough, but like it's just you want to get there first. You want to be the first one. It's like a race,
Yep.
and that can eat at you, which it did for me for sure. It took me forever. It took me 5.5 years to get to the major leagues. So I and a lot of what you're talking about right there, where you're like getting tight and not going to the gratitude. That was I definitely want to get into this lot because we're about to go into the major leagues. You get drafted, you get up in 2009 with the Red Sox. It's the Red Sox, which I grew up with a soft spot for them. Like it's Fenway. Like this is not.
Well, it was
This is
also I didn't think about this till I gave a talk the other day at a college banquet, and I was like, I came in drafted in 06 between the 04 and the 07 World Series.
Yep.
So as soon as I get drafted, they're the biggest team in baseball. Then they win the World Series again in 07 as I'm in the minors, and I get called up in 09, and it's all those same guys.
Yeah.
It's like it's Pedroia, it's Ortiz, it's Beckett. It's this, like, I described it in the talk I just gave. I was like, it was like walking into a movie, walking into that clubhouse.
Into that tiny clubhouse. It's not like you're gonna miss anybody either. They're
Tiny
there. They're like
clubhouse
in the
with
group.
like, you got 25 guys on the roster that time. Like 12 of them are superstars.
Yeah.
You know,
Was Uke there at that time?
Oh yeah, Euclid, Papelbon, Pedroia. Let's see, Veritek, Lester, Beckett. I don't know, Wakefield. I don't know. Like literally, like people say Wakefield, but like that dude was the center of the 03 like series when he got walked off by Boone. Like, yeah, everybody was like a baseball celebrity in that room. in their own way. And it's like, okay, I'm just here trying to get a few outs out of the pen for you guys.
And you got to go sit out with Papelbon right
Yeah. Well,
away.
he didn't come out till about the top of the eighth, so I didn't have to sit too much with him.
Well, that's good because he's notorious for you can't avoid his gaze as a rookie. Let's just put it that way.
He's special.
Okay,
He's
so
special.
you get up, you see your team, right? You're like, my team's crazy, which I didn't have that. I went with the Twins, so like basically the teams we were playing against, which I was like, Mickey Cabrera, that's Mickey Cabrera. So who was your like? Oh shit! Like who was the first guy you faced? Walked in the box. You're like, dude, I'm in, like that's Mickey Cabrera, or that is whoever it is. Who was your first guy? We're like, oh shit, I'm in the show.
I mean, it's got to be the Yankees lineup at that time. Jeter. Let's see, it was Jeter, Posada, Mark Teixeira, Johnny Damon. Same thing. It's just like those teams were like deep in the playoffs every single year. I think and A-Rod too. A-Rod was there. I think seeing A-Rod, A-Rod is just such a public figure his whole career, right? And for a long time was the best player in baseball. To see him 60 feet away was like surreal, I imagine it's like for guys now when like you see Mike Trout 60 feet away for the first time.
Yeah.
It's
Ohtani
it's
walks in the box.
It's surreal. It looks like you're looking at a wax figure. And you're like, no, that's the actual guy, and I got to get him out.
And also, they're huge. Like, A-Rod was huge. Ohtani is massive. Like, they're way bigger than you think they are, too. You're like, dude, that guy, please don't hit this at me. Please don't. I don't care if you hit it. Just don't hit it at me, because I'm not going to catch it. Who was can you remember who the first Yankee is you faced?
I can't remember the first. No, I just that was the lineup that year. I pitched a lot in those series. Mark Teixeira owned me. It was like 3 homers as a rookie. I worked my way into like a 7th inning setup role by like August. But as soon as I got in that role, we go play the Yankees. We're like a game apart in August, and Teixeira hits homers on back-to-back nights off me. I think both blew the lead. So, that was a memorable time.
Those are some scars. Did you ever get over that? Or did you ever find any success?
I was having a pretty good rookie year, but I think I speak for most people. Like, no matter how good you're playing as a rookie, you have one bad game, you're waiting for a tap on the shoulder at your locker.
Oh yeah.
Like you're like, I don't care that I haven't given up a run in 2 months. I just blew a 3-run lead. You're like, they're sending me down. I'm going back AAA tomorrow. It's happening. This is the day. Because you're like, it's almost like you're waiting for the dream to end. I'm in this dream. It's going good. And then you're like, I screwed it up. And you're waiting for the tap. And I blew those 2 games, which felt like the biggest, 2 blown games of my life. And I'm standing in the outfield shagging the next day in Yankee Stadium. And I was like, okay, they haven't said anything to me yet. It's either coming after the game today, or maybe I'll get one more. If I blow that one, or if I don't do well on that one, like I'm out of here. And Francona came up to me during batting practice, making his rounds, and he was like, I was 23 years old, I think. He's like, hey kid, how you doing? I was like, not real good, man. He's like, we got the lead in the 7th tonight. You better be ready. I was like, all right. Okay, you're nuts, but okay. No, and then you just want to prove him right, and you're like, he just gave me a vote of confidence, and I'm gonna. Okay, maybe if he believes in me, maybe I should believe in me too. Maybe he's seeing something I don't, and that conversation sticks out in my mind, and as kind of get me back on track. And I finished the year pretty strong, probably because of that conversation. Because I was on thin ice, is what I felt like.
Okay. We gotta, I want to unpack that a little bit more. You said something that I've been when people ask me about why I retired, honestly, it comes up a lot. You mentioned no matter how good things are going, you're like waiting for that. Like, it's just a good dream and you're going to wake up. Right. Which for me, for a long time, robbed the joy of having any success. I was just like, okay, it was like more like relief. Okay, just do it again tomorrow. So I can just, instead of like, I can enjoy it instead of enjoying it, I was just like, I just want to not be sad. I just
Yeah.
want to not be unhappy.
Yeah, you're wondering,
And
like, how well do I have to pitch to be satisfied? And
yeah,
there's no level. You
there's no
punch
answer
out
to
the
that.
side, you're like, yeah, but now I got to do it again, or
Yeah.
now people expect that, and it's like you can't just be happy with it. You're like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You
You
wish you
can't.
could.
And it's almost like I had a weird thing. I don't know if you did. This is kind of just off the top of my dome, but I had this thing where I'm so I got so analytical and process oriented. Like I love making lists and I love making plans. And when things were going well, and it was just like kind of the days were rinse and repeat, I got bored. Like I was like, I need more adversity. I need
You
a
need a
problem to
hobby.
fix.
That's what you need. You
Yeah.
need a hobby
I mean, I had hobbies. I just
that
like
had
I,
nothing to do with baseball.
I needed to like, I don't know, get an erector set or something and do engineering stuff, like problems to solve because I was constantly like, how can I be more efficient? How can I do this and that? And it's almost like I do it to myself. Like I would just like I would not be have as much attention to detail for a while because I'm like, oh, I got this. It's going well. And then it'd go wrong again. I'd be like, oh, I'm so unhappy. The next day I come in all jazzed up to work. And it was weird. It was like a weird I had lots of this conversation, so I was interested to hear if you had any experiences like that. But I guess it kind of brings us into the a lot of what I would love to get into as much as you would like to, and we have a lot of parallel experiences. When we met in 2023, and just both of us back off the anxiety IL. I want to get into that in a little bit too, but you were dominant in 2010. Crazy year, 193 in 73 games. That's insane. And we're throwing really well in 2011 until a little bit towards the end. The team was struggling. We all know about how the season ended that year, and you were struggling yourself, and it was probably felt a lot like the Teixeira home runs and the blowing those games, and try to get through that. But then now we're doing starter Daniel Bard, and the things feel the I was in playing pro ball at this time. The word being used a lot for those of you at home that don't know the yips, and it's just it's something like you won't allow yourself to throw the ball where you want to throw it. There's something it's gone beyond thinking. It's subconscious at this point. So take me through it just a little bit. What changed in your mind? What was like the inciting event? What was that turning point happen when your relationship with like being on the mound started to change?
Yeah, so you mentioned 2011. The end of that year, I had a great year in 2010. I was having a better year in 11, up until mid August. I mean, I think I had a 1.14, had less walks, more strikeouts. Like I was actually improving on that, and I think I can't point to one outing where things went awry. It was definitely like a slow crumble, I guess I'd say. But the end of 2011, I think I was just physically pretty exhausted. Nothing was hurt, but you know how it is when you just get rode hard for like multiple years straight, like everything in your arm is tired. Not to mention the mental fatigue and all that, but um, I think I was probably down 2 or 3 ticks on the radar gun, and I think my command was probably like a little off of what it normally was. A few inches bigger bubble that I'm hitting. Not bad, right? Stuff you can normally kind of pitch through, but it was like that stuff was happening on what felt like the biggest stage in baseball, right? Red Sox were the best team in baseball. We were on pace to win 104 games or something like that. Um, I'm throwing the eighth inning. I'm leading the league in holds for the second year in a row. Um, everything said I was supposed to hold down that role. We were supposed to win the World Series. Papelbon was about to become a free agent. I was going to take over as closer. Like it was all the carpet was rolled out, right? And like you said, our team started to kind of get shaky. We all got tight in September, and we played the worst baseball that you could possibly play, being that talented of a team. Like we were crazy talented in 11. And we just got tight. I got a little tight. I was trying to be perfect. I remember I mentioned Wakefield earlier. Tim's trying to get his 200th career win in that span, I think. And there was like 2 or 3 times he's at 199, and it's all the media is talking about. So we're the best team in baseball. He's trying to get 200. He keeps handing me leads in the 8th inning for his 200th win, and I blew like 2 or 3 in a row. I would literally go up and be like, I would go up to him in the clubhouse and just be like, dude, I'm sorry. He's like, fuck it, man. I know you're trying. It's all good. Like he was so nice about it, but I know he had this weight because he'd get talked to about it before and after every start. And I remember looking back, that probably added to it. You know, you trying to, that was just a teammate and a friend thing. I'm like, dude, I want him to get that 200 so everyone will leave him alone. And I kept blowing it. And it wasn't like I was blowing it pitching terrible. You know how you've done the same job. Like you can be a 8th inning guy, get handed a 1-run lead, you make 12 good pitches and you give up 2 runs. Like it happens. And I think a couple of them were probably like that. You still feel bad, even though you can't change anything. And I think I was just putting pressure on myself, or allowing the environment to kind of dictate it, how I was feeling. And we end up, I'm trying to think, last game of the season, I actually nailed down a hold on the last day of the season, and then Papelbon blew the save. So I was like so relieved that it wasn't me that blew the final game. But yeah, we missed the playoffs, blew an 11-game division lead or something like that. And then going into next year, I think it was just kind of, they cleaned house. We had a new manager, a new pitching coach, had a bunch of new teammates. And going in, it was like, I think I asked him to start. That was my idea, honestly. I think we had traded for Andrew Bailey, who was an all-star closer at the time. And I was like, okay, well, they traded for him. They want him to close. They don't trust me with it because of how I finished last year. I don't want to keep setting up because I feel like I had pitched my way out of that role. So I was like, I'll go start, because I was hitting arbitration at the time too. You know how that is too. It's like, okay, now I have a chance to set my family and myself up for, financial freedom. And I'm like, setup guys get paid like shit. Like the best setup. For people listening that don't realize the difference, like you take an elite setup guy, and it's changed a little. They do a little better now, but it's the arbitration system rewards home runs, starter wins, and saves if you're a reliever. Those 3 categories, like that's how you make crazy money in arbitration. So I think I had 75 holds over the past 3 years going into that. And so they don't
care about holds. I know that.
They don't care. It gets you like an extra.
They care about blown saves, which you can get, but with the hold,
you can blow a save in the 6th. That's a whole other conversation. We need rule change that needs to happen. You shouldn't be able to blow a save with someone else's runs in the 6th inning. Yeah. Sorry, that gets me fired up. But no, I mean, I looked at the system and I was like, I'm doing everything I can. I don't know how much longer my arm's going to last, right? You never know as a pitcher. Am I going to have a 2-year career, a 5-year career, a 10-year career? You hope it's 10. Rarely is it. And you're trying to get as much of a contract as you can before your body starts to fail you, right? So I'm in like year 3, getting close to the arbitration years, and I'm like, the best paid middle relievers are making like $1.5 million. The best paid closers are making like 6 first time through arbitration. Like, you do the math. I think closing is slightly harder just because of the pressure to get the last few outs, but it's essentially the same job, and you get paid 5 times more. So I was like, well, if I'm not going to close, I'm going to start, because an average starter makes as much as a closer.
You know who makes more than all relievers? Starters.
Average starters. And I was like, I just did the math in my head, and I'm like, okay, I know I can get outs in the big leagues at this point. I've done it for, going on 3 years. If I can just do that for 6 innings every 5th day, I'll be fine. And I'll help the team more. Like, honestly, I'll be more valuable to the team. So that's how I was like, this isn't a selfish decision. If this goes well, everybody wins. And it didn't go well, to say the least.
Yeah,
New
it's a different
pitching
beast.
coach, new manager. We tried to change a bunch of stuff with my delivery to become a starter. Like I changed how I pitched to become a starter, which looking back makes no sense. But hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like, and stop me at any point if this isn't quite on. Like you had a plan. Like you have a roadmap, you have a plan. There's expectations. This is the best way to do it. Let's be pragmatic about this thing, and let's what's the best way to move forward. I know that I'm a big leaguer. Know that, so let's do the job that be best for me and my family, and I can also help the team better. And then when you start to see that not come to fruition, and you kind of lose like what was the things that I did well, it becomes really really hard to get back to some semblance. I mean, the longer you go, it's a long season, longer you go without feeling like locked in, uh the 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 more fleeting it is. Like you're like, was I ever locked in? Was that all just luck? I don't remember. But that's how my rookie year was. I'm like, I don't remember pitching good ever. But I know that I'm better today than I was yesterday. Okay, so things kind of, you start, get sent down to Pawtucket.
Mm.
Now Worcester. Yes, they just keep choosing the worst, hardest to say names for their teams. And the starting doesn't really work out, and there's thoracic outlet in there, correct? um and it's kind of a bounce around situation for the next 3 or 4 years until you decide to hang them up.
Yeah,
And
it was about 6 years. So
it was about
don't
6 years
don't
of
breeze over
trying.
those 3 years of sucking.
I
They
will
were
not,
rough.
I'm not, everyone sucks for an amount of time. It was a very tough time of your life. I was telling you the story before, and I guess I'll say it on the show. But in 2013, we had gone up. I believe we went up to Portland. You were with the Sea Dogs at the time.
This was I
And
was I was on my way back down,
yeah, I
down,
think
down the
you had
ladder.
been moved back to the pen. They were like,
Yeah,
let's try to get our 2011 Daniel Bard back. And you were like, I would love that. And
everyone
I
would
think
love that.
it was a tough day. I think you guys had like a piggyback situation. I don't think the game was very close, anyways. You guys might have been. I think we might have been just beating you pretty bad that day. The starter didn't do very well, and you came in, and it was. I felt for you. Let's just put
Yeah,
it. I wasn't pitching that day, I remember, but I remember being like, man, like the way you were just kind of thrown out there. And like I remember
yeah,
there was like no pitch, there was no, I think it was like 6 or 7 straight walks. And then that's all that that's all that happened. And then you got pulled, and there was a few
yeah.
walk.
If that's
eh,
I don't know for sure. That's the outing that I'm thinking it was. I got 2013. I broke with Double A after being in the big leagues for like basically 4 years before that.
Yeah.
But there was a pitching coach there they wanted me to work with, so I was on board, I guess. But it was like a pretty good ego hit, right?
Yeah.
To go back to Double A with the same organization that you've been in the big leagues with for 4 years. So I was back in Double A. I think I pitched like 10 times, did okay. It wasn't great, but enough to where they needed a guy in a pinch in the big leagues. I went up, pitched twice, get sent back to Double A after pitching twice, and that's when I was like, I've had a good attitude this whole time. I
Yeah.
went to Double A with a smile on my face, saying, "Yeah, I'll put in the work. I'll go where you guys want me." Went up, and I'm like, at the very least, just send me to Triple A or release me or something. And I went back to Double A, and I was like, I can't do this. So I remember, I think the outing you're referring to was my first outing back,
Yeah. I think it was.
and it was like, yeah, it was like maybe first
You were
week
just
of
done.
May, second week of May, and I went and I said,
It was
I mean,
freezing too. I remember it was freezing.
yeah, I think it was cold. I threw every pitch as hard as I possibly could. That was my goal. I said, if I can't throw enough strikes, and they're going to keep sending me back here, I'm going to try to throw 100 every pitch. And
He was throwing hard.
I pitched. I don't know if I was throwing hard or not, but
Yeah, I remember you
that
were, and guys were kind of scared. There was a
that
lot of wild
outing,
pitches in there.
yeah, and my mechanics were all out of whack, as they had been for a while at that point. But combining, like I was pitching with the emotion of like just like blind. Like I don't think I've ever had another outing before or after that I pitched. Like I think I almost had tears in my eyes. I was like, I can't believe I'm back here. I'm gonna throw every pitch as hard as I can. I don't give a shit what happens. And I was throwing pitches off the backstop. Literally, I didn't do this ever again. And I pulled a abdominal muscle pitching that night, which I ended up spending like 3 months on the IL for that summer. I'm pretty sure that was the outing.
Yeah, I'll just say this:
It was a low point. You witnessed a low point, is what I'm getting at.
We could tell it wasn't like you're just out there and you're trying to find something. There's something happened. Like I remember the pitching coach didn't come out to like the fourth or fifth walk too. So like he was like, you're pissed off. You probably were like, he knew you were mad before that. You're out there. He's been told. So he's like, I don't know what to say to this guy. So it was, you see that stuff in the minors where guys are just pissed off and you don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to be done. So we are just like, I just knew how you felt. Like it's just a level of frustration. You're so frustrated that you're like blind. You're seeing it's a rage almost, right?
Yeah,
And you're just like, I don't care. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just gonna throw as hard as I can.
That was
right?
it. I don't know where it's going, but they keep putting me out here. They keep sending me to this level. I don't know. I was almost like make a mockery of it, and I did.
Yeah, make a mockery of it.
I did it.
You did.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Hey,
Mission accomplished.
can you hold on 1 second? I gotta let the dog back in.
Where were we? Okay. Okay. So you struggle with that for a while. You end up going to the Pirates and the Mets for a minute, and I think there was another team in there somewhere, correct?
Mets, Cardinals, Rangers,
Cardinals,
Cubs.
Rangers, Cubs. So
Not that order, but yeah.
Going for it, trying to find your way back and eventually choose to retire. I believe you retired in January, and by February you were a mental skills guy with Arizona. So what went into that decision? Was that like kind of conversation happening already before you decided to retire?
So I actually retired like in August of 2017.
Oh, okay.
And kind of sat on it all winter. And it was funny because nobody noticed that I retired. Like, I don't even know if like a press release went out. I mean, I got released out of extended spring essentially. Like, I was rehabbing, relearning how to throw with the Mets, and so it wasn't like I even left a team. But no one noticed. And by like, I weighed my options and like I could sell insurance, flip houses. Like, what could I do? How can I make some money? Do something that sounds, because baseball just hadn't been fun for a long time at that point. So I was like, anything but baseball. And I sat and I made a bunch of phone calls, and I'm calling former teammates and friends and talking to people who've kind of been mentors and stuff. And eventually it was like, okay, the only thing I know is baseball, and I worked really hard to get back, and it didn't work. But I learned a lot, right? I didn't find my answer, but like the stuff that I learned can help people. So I felt like it was selfish to completely leave the game behind, and there's a lot of ways you can give back to the game. I think you're doing it with this show and talking about things like this. So at that time though, I was like, how do I connect with guys? How do I connect with younger players? And this job with the Diamondbacks kind of came about unexpectedly, and basically they hired me. They said, "Hey, just go be yourself and talk to our minor league guys." I'm like, "Just be myself." Like They're like, "Yeah, just be a mentor to them." It's like, I can do that and get paid to do it. Yeah, so it was just kind of a good fit. It didn't pay a ton of money, but it was it helped cover the bills for the most part, and I was scared. I basically felt like I was pretending to be a coach. It's pretty much the whole 2 years I was there, but it was great, man. Met a lot of great people that are still there, still all over baseball. I think I helped a handful of guys, here and there, but I think I learned way more from those conversations with the younger players than they learned from me. Just talking through it and through life and in the game, and just mainly seeing it from another perspective. You just see the game so different when you retire. especially when it's been hard, which a lot of guys retire right after a very hard stretch, and the game it gets out of proportion. You put it on a pedestal, and,
Yeah.
and then you watch it from the sidelines when you don't have a uniform on, and you're impressed. You're like, damn, these guys are good. But like, I used to do that every night, and they're having fun. Like, look at that guy having fun. I could have done that. I never did that. You just like look at things and like just see things different, man. You wish you did it different. And I literally had zero aspirations or intentions of ever trying to play again.
And
Just
then,
and
and
then
then what happened?
and then I did, but no, for 2 years I had zero concept of trying to pitch again because it was so bad. Like, it was bad. It wasn't like, oh, I had a hard stretch and I quit. Like, I tried to fix things for almost 6 years of my life, basically from 28 to 34. Is that right? Or 27 to 33, something like that. I was trying to fix it and basically got no better for 6 years. So I'd be playing catch with a player that I'm coaching. First year, I still was yipped up bad. Second year, I'm playing catch. I'm like, oh, it feels a little better. Still not thinking comeback. I'm just like, this is fun again. Playing catch is fun. This is like awesome. I can play catch with my kids. That's what I was thinking about. I was like, good. I can play catch with my sons when they get older and not look like an idiot. But I'm playing catch with a minor league guy, and they're like, dude, you still got it. You should try to play again. And I was like, you have no clue what I went through. I'm like, let's just enjoy this game of catch and not talk about that. And I had a few of those conversations that were pretty similar throughout that summer. And then by like August, I had one, and it was like a AAA or a big league guy that knew what he was talking about. He's like, dude, you're throwing harder than me right now. And I was like, I'm just happy I'm hitting you in the chest. And he's like, no, seriously, like, that's 94. That's easily 94. He's like, cut one loose. He's at like 80 feet. He's like, throw it as hard as you can. And I hit him right in the glove. He goes, that's 94. I promise you right now. And I was like, okay, cool. And didn't act on it, didn't do anything at that moment. But it's that those conversations just piled up, and they kind of stuck in my head going into the off season. And I was like,
cool.
And I just was like, okay, I'm going to just keep my arm going. I'm going to throw a little more the next month or two. And I was throwing into a net in the backyard. Like 3 days a week, I'd throw 2 buckets of balls into my net, had a little taped up target. And I just felt really good. And I eventually got a catcher, and it was 95. Like, I confirmed, I'm like, it actually is pretty hard still. And I was just happy I was throwing strikes. And I did that a few times, and my wife's basically like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'm still employed by the Diamondbacks as a coach at this point. She's like, what are you doing? Because I'd been saying like, oh, I'm just like playing with some techniques that I want to use with some players next year, some mental skills techniques. And that was actually the truth. But I also was playing with them to see if they worked on me, because I was like the ultimate mental midget. So if they work on me, like, they're going to work on everybody. And then it just turned out it was coming out so good. I was like, I have to see if I can do it with a hitter in the box. And so we just kept progressing, and I ended up getting signed.
Just a slow burn. By the way, that whole like just seeing was like the plot, the exact plot of The Rookie. Like that is exactly what he did.
Yep.
And his wife was like, "Hey, what are you doing? We have a job now." And he's like, "Well, I'm just checking. I just want to see.
Yeah.
I like feeling.
That's what I've heard. The Rookie Part 2 is what I've heard that they're going to use me for.
Only thing missing was guy goes, "That's 98," just yelling at you as you go. Actually, don't tell me that happened. That'd be ridiculous. I'd watch that movie. We need another one. So if it's about you, I'm in. So, and you end up, signing with the Rockies. Were they like the leader to sign you the whole time, or did it just kind of happen?
So I did a showcase because I figured teams would want to see me. Since I hadn't pitched in 7 years in the big leagues at that point, the teams would be like, I called my agent. My agent was like, and it wasn't unusual for me to call him, but I called him, and I'm like, hey, I got something I want to run by you. And that was normal. So he's like, hey, man, what you got? I was like, I need you to set up a tryout. Like, I'm going to pitch again. He was like, okay, yeah, we can, yeah, we can do that. And I could hear the wheels. And he's like, my agent's one of my close friends. And, at this point, he's been my agent for 20 years. Um, would never say a negative thing to a guy who's trying to make it.
Yeah.
But at that point,
He was
I had
there
been
with you the
retired.
whole time.
Yeah, I'd been retired,
Yeah.
and I could when he's responding, I could hear his wheels turning, going. He's like,
Are we gonna do this?
yeah, yeah, like thinking probably like, okay, that means I have to call or email all 30 teams and say that Daniel Bard wants to pitch again, the guy that couldn't get an out for the last 7 years and became a coach, and I have to go tell them that you got to see this guy throw. And I'm sure there were some laughs when that message went out, but I had like 20 teams show up, and I threw well, which I remember before that tryout, I was like, if the Yips are going to show back up, this is when it'll happen, with 20 scouts watching, on a high school field. But they didn't, so we just kept going one day at a time.
One day at a time. So you get signed by Colorado, minor league deal. You go 2020. We're there in spring training, and then COVID hits. So when you walked out of that clubhouse, when they're like, we're shutting it down, we'll let you know when the season's starting up. Were you like, well, shit, like maybe it's just not in the cards?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. Did you expect to never come back? Were you like, well, I tried,
Well,
and I'm
none
happy
of
with
us.
it?
We thought we were going home for 10 days, right?
Oh yeah,
When it first happened,
yeah.
they're like, "Hey, we're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
send everyone home and like stop the spread." And I'm like, "Okay, 10 days, 2 weeks. This is weird, but we're gonna start the season like April 20th," is what we all thought. And I figured I was going to AAA, at some point. But we went home, and like the days and the weeks kept adding up, and it got to the point where it's like June 1st. No one's even talking about a baseball season. And so I was like, well, yeah, that was cool. That was a good story. I got to go do three spring training outings. That was fun. But I still was like, okay, if there's like an independent league that'll sign me for a month, like I'll do that. I was willing and wanted to do just anything to pitch on a mound again and like play in a competitive environment. That was pretty much that was my goal, was to pitch on a competitive mound and have my family there to watch, because my kids were getting a little older and they didn't get to see me pitch the first time. So that was the bar was so low. It was just like, someone sign me and put me in a game with a real hitter and an umpire. That was it. If I could do that and throw strikes, it was a win. I could have some like closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's quite a different mindset. It sounds like from the time where like, oh God, Fenway, the world's going to end if this doesn't go well. To I just want to pitch. I just want to be on a mound and play. That's what experience to do for you. You come back, you're player of the year in 2020, electric 2021. You were absolutely filthy closing, and through 22. You had a lot of success again. But the big thing that I would love to chat about here, because I literally went through to be honest, you utilizing the anxiety IL and this coming out of spring in 2023 was what actually made me okay with taking advantage of that as well, because I would have just wide knuckled my way through it. So I actually don't know. I know that there was a little bit of command problems and you were feeling something coming on, but instead of just like, I'm just going to keep going until it, and see what happens. It was like, hey, I know what's happening. I need to take some time and get going. So what was the exciting event? Was it like a slow burn? Like, I think maybe taking a break here needs to be what happens, or did something specific happen?
Well, I mean, everybody knows, or everybody that follows baseball closely knows, the WBC did not go very well for me. It starts before that, honestly. Like I was banged up, kind of ending 22. I had the best year of my career statistically that year. Signed a 2-year extension with the Rockies, but I'm like basically trying to get my elbow to feel good again. Just going back all off season, going into 23. Get asked to be on the Team USA, which was like a dream come true. That roster, if you go back and look at it, is ridiculous. I mean, it's combined it's combined the American League and National League All-Star team together, and that's pretty much what our team was. All American guys, of course, but so I literally got that invite, and I was like, my elbow does not feel great right now, but like I have to do this. The Rockies were not, I owe so much to them. I loved my time there, loved the people there, but we were not winning many games. And it didn't look like we were going to have a whole lot different year. So I was like, this is my World Series. I get to go be on a team with Trout and Arenado and Trey Turner and Adam Wainwright. I go down the list, but like stupid roster. I'm leaving out some big names, but I get to go to battle with those guys as my teammates. Like, I'm not missing this. I don't feel good, but I'm going to go do it. I'm going to find a way. So I ramp up early for that. It's the tournament's in mid-March. Normally you're having like kind of laid back spring training games, getting ready. And I'm like, I'm full go on, February 20th, ready to go. But I didn't feel good. So kind of like I get my 3 or 4 spring training games before we break and go to the WBC. And they didn't go great, right? I'm not throwing the ball well. My velo's down 4 or 5 miles an hour from the last year. And I honestly started feeling like the anxiety picking up because I was like, okay, I'm going on to the biggest baseball stage of my life and I don't feel good. But I'm not saying no to this. And I wasn't scared, but it was just I wanted to be the best. I wanted a chance to close on that team. And it was, like I said, it was a chance to like show everybody what I was capable of. Even though I'm 38 years old, like you still have that feeling of like, hey, look what I can do, especially when you feel good, right? Mm-hmm. So kind of went into it with trying to prove a lot, but not feeling my best. And it just kind of perfect storm, elbow wasn't feeling good, trying to throw 105, and it just didn't work out. So I had a couple really bad outings. They didn't end up hurting us as a team too bad, thank God. Thank you, Trey Turner, for that grand slam. But that was the biggest bailout ever. So still such a cool experience to be a part of. It probably would have came up at some point, or just even if I didn't play on that team, I just was not in a good space. My elbow was banged up, but I was determined to pitch through it for the WBC, and then also to live up to the contract that I just signed with the Rockies. They signed me to be the guy. You want to go be the guy. And so I come back from the WBC. We got maybe a week until opening day, and I had just pitched a couple days ago and could barely throw a strike. And in like 7 days, I'm supposed to be the closer for a big league team. And I just every day was like panic. Like, I don't have it today. Maybe I'll have it tomorrow. I'd go play catch, be like, nope, still don't have it. Doesn't feel good. Elbow hurts. Not really going where I want it to. And like every day as the season got closer, it was like panic, more panic, more panic. And I'm married with 3 kids, and I'm not myself at home either. I could feel that. And, I think having been through what I went through, 10 years ago, it was like my wife knew the signs, and she's like, are you going to try to power through this? And I was like, I kind of have to, right? I'm technically healthy.
Yeah.
And they just paid me to be the closer. Like, I need to go pitch. She was like, is that the best idea for you and the team? And I'm like, no, neither. But I got to do it. Like,
you immediately said, no, it's absolutely not.
It's a horrible idea, but I got to do it. The competitor in me, like just the guy who wants to live up to, you made an agreement. You guys invested in me. I'm going to go try to live up to it. At least try, right? I probably tried to a fault with stuff like that. Hence the 6 years of trying to beat the Yips. Like, just give up already. And that's kind of, I had some conversations, and, we decided I was going to start on the IL. And they were like, well, we know your elbow's not 100%. Like, I'm assuming that's what you want to go on the IL with. And I was like, yeah. But I was like, but that's not, I was like, I was talking to our head trainer at the time. who I was close with, and I was like, you and I both know I'm not actually going on for the elbow. And he's like, yeah. He was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I kind of feel like I have to do this. I got to be honest, right? And he's like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But he said, if you were 23, 24, and you're going through the same thing, I'd tell you, go on for your elbow. Like, handle this in private. He's like, you're 38 years old. You've been through it. You're going to be okay. You're going to come out of this. You got perspective. Like, he's like, you could make a big difference if you just own up to it and tell people what's going on. He's like, it's not going to be fun, but he said, I think you'll actually feel better. And when he said that, I was like, you know, when I'm still going to be at the field every day. I'm still going to be running around the outfield, shagging and walking by the media people and stuff like that. And I was like, I'll feel a lot better if there's no secrets, right? If there's a secret that I might be on the IL with anxiety, but we're saying it's arm, that would make the anxiety worse, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like knowing that you're lying about it and cowering away from it would make it worse. And I was like, look, this shit's real. And so we made that decision, and it was not easy at the time, but within like 24, 48 hours, the amount of support that I got, and I'm talking not just from teammates and people that were there, but like I got 100 text messages the day it got announced. 100 text messages from people that I hadn't heard from in 15 years. Like, hey, thinking of you. Hope everything's good. And that's the other thing is you just say he's on the IL with anxiety. That's like a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
I was luckily on the good side of the spectrum, right? I was having a
Mhm.
rough patch, but like my life was still pretty dang good.
Yeah.
So, but people texting me are like, they don't know if, I'm on the edge and bad things are happening. And so they don't know, but they just offer a text of support of like, hey, you ever need anything, let me know. Or that's, telling me, that the amazing thing was how many people said, I've struggled with this in private for years. And for you to come out and say this is like unbelievable. That was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I got that a
I
lot.
think I got 30 or 40 people, and not players, like people that do all kinds of jobs. They're like, I've struggled with it. I'm on medication. I've never had to talk about it. I've never had to announce it in a press conference that I have anxiety. Um, so that all made it worth it.
Yeah. I was blown away by not only the people around me. By the way, the A's were incredible. Like about it, like they suggested it. They're like, "Hey, this is an option now. You want to do this?" I'm like, and for me, to be honest, when it comes to stuff like this, like as soon as any outside source like gives me a little permission, I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just say it because I don't care. I know I'm an anxious guy. I'm a what like I always call it white knuckling, just pushing through it. But like it's always been life or death. I've actually had 2 or 3 different panic attacks in my career that people don't know about. Like one time I went down into the after blowing a game in Minnesota. I went down to throw stuff and I went down to a knee, couldn't get up. Like I was like, what is happening? And trainer came in and they thought I was having a heart attack. And like, you're having
Wow.
a panic attack. We're gonna go get you in the training room. And I was like, all right. And I went in and I locked up to the point where I still can't explain it to this day. But now I know what that is. And I had one. I had an outing. I love Oakland, but in terms of having our shit together, we didn't. Like this team, like we were not on the same. No one on this team was on the same page at the beginning of the year, and I was a guy who was used to being on the same page. So like we had the pitch clock also just
Yeah.
crushed me, speed me up. I'm screwed, right? And so that all happened. Like I was trying to get signs put down. The guy wouldn't stop doing the pitch com. I give up a bunch of runs at the Cubs. It's Oakland, so there's nowhere where there's nobody. So I'm pacing around all underneath, just yelling. And
Makes
I
it
had a
worse.
panic attack
Doesn't
for
it?
like, yeah, oh, for
I
like a
feel
half an hour.
like no
Everyone saw me.
fans makes stuff like that worse.
So bad. So I
I'd
go in the
rather
dugout.
have
You can't hide
60.
there.
Yeah, I'd rather have 60,000 like a dull roar to just kind
Yeah.
of mask everything. But then when
Yeah.
you have like the empty stadium and you can hear like the
Yeah.
two guys
Feels like
yelling,
everyone's looking at you.
two
Yeah.
guys yelling that you suck, you hear every
Yes.
word everyone says. It's like everything echoes. Yeah,
Yeah.
in there.
It was rough. But like it was really inspiring to see you do it and like own it and say it out loud. Um, and I know Austin Meadows did the same thing. Really, really close after you too. And so if you didn't do it, man, we wouldn't have. I just want you to know that, like, we
And
would not have done it.
well,
For the same reasons you
that's
say. But
exactly why I did it, and I'm
yeah.
really glad y'all followed up because I think it would have been forgotten quickly. If other guys hadn't come out as well, because every year, there's probably 20 guys across major
Oh
leagues
yeah.
that go on the IL for anxiety, but it's listed as something else. And
Yep.
here's the thing: I don't discredit, look down on anything that people choose to do because it's your situation. Publicizing anxiety or depression, like any mental health stuff, for a lot of people, like that's going to make it worse, for sure. I
Yep.
knew for me, it was going to help me make it better because I knew I was like, I could live knowing I was just like the truth is out there. I don't have to hide anything. That
Mm.
was really freeing for me. But for other people, like it might not be the choice, and that's fine. That's awesome. You pick your path and live with it, right?
Mm.
But I wanted it. I wanted to do it, and I wanted other people to be not afraid to do it. I think, yeah, my name gets associated with the yips a lot, and people are like, "Oh, the yips is anxiety. Anxiety is the yips." It's really not. I don't think they often go hand in hand. It's almost impossible to not have one with or not have the yips without having anxiety, I would say. But for me, I think like anxiety can cause the yips and the yips can cause anxiety. It just depends on the situation and the
Yeah.
person. And I knowing what I know and the I've studied the hell out of this topic. What I think happens with me is when I'm injured or physically beat up, whether it's shoulder, elbow, back, anything, my body's not working at 100%. My subconscious, the way it responds is it goes right about right here. It goes, nope, we're not throwing that
Yep.
pitch. And it
Yep.
tries to stop the pitch. And so literally every muscle tightens up.
Fights you.
And you can be like as confident as you want going into this outing or whatever it is. And your subconscious, which is trying to protect you and saying, okay, last time we threw, that didn't feel very good. If we keep doing that, something's going to come off the bone. Your body knows, right? Your body knows when it's about to get
Yep.
hurt. It knows when it's about to do an action that has a super high risk. So throwing is high risk, right? And if you're, in my case, this most recent time that we're talking about, my tendon was starting to tear off the bone, and it wasn't excruciating. It didn't feel good. It was sore all the time, but I could pitch with it, right? It wasn't off the bone yet, but I think my subconscious says, if we keep doing this action at 98 miles an hour, super free and whippy, it's going to be off the bone real fast. But if we like kind of tighten everything down to where you can only throw 93, 92, and you don't throw a lot of strikes, so you're not going to pitch that often. I don't know if it goes that far, but it's what it feels like. But it's basically like saying you're not going to throw, you're not going to keep throwing, and it stops you from being able to do that action at that speed, that freedom. That's the yips. And then try to perform with that going on, and the social feeling of like, the embarrassment, letting down your teammates, looking like an idiot. That's where the anxiety comes from. So they're separate, and I'm glad this podcast giving me the chance to explain this. I don't think I've ever really explained it to people, but that's how I see that going. I had the yips and I had anxiety. I was on the
Mhm.
IL for anxiety, so that's what I want people that go through the yips to know. Like, you should be able to go on the IL for that realm of things, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There are
and,
things you can take a break and figure out that aren't just something broke in your body. Like, there are other things that you can do, and it's okay.
yep.
That's what I want, right? Um, that makes a ton of sense, and it's really interesting to hear you say that because, just the same way you mentioned, when you if you pull a muscle or something, all the muscles around it tighten up. It's because your that's its body's natural defense mechanism, so you don't hurt yourself even more. And the yips sometimes can be your body trying not to hurt yourself mentally because when you pitch bad, it makes you really unhappy, and you're trying to avoid that, right? That could be an example, or physically, it could be a combination of both. But like, it could come from different direct. All you know is your body doesn't want to throw a ball, and that could be for any reason depending on the person. I was just generally like what I mentioned earlier in the show. I was just I pitch and I'm like, oh good, it's over. I got through it. Hope next time it happens. And when I pitch well and when I pitch bad, I'm like, see, and I'm like, wow, I'm miserable all the time. Like,
Yeah,
this isn't fun at all. Even though I'm doing fine, and I'm like the oldest guy on this team, and I'm the highest paid guy, and I'm like the guy on the mic. I have to do everything for this team because everyone's 20. And it should have been a blast, and I had to find a way to make it fun again. And I'll never forget. I came off the IL. It's so funny. I remember going into Mark Kotze's office the day I came off, like a month in. And I go, hey, could you just give me like 2 outings where I'm not throwing in the fridge? And he goes, "Oh, yeah, yeah. First day, come in 8th inning, hold situation, get a hold." And
he forgot.
he
He
goes, "Hey,
totally. I was teammates with Katse. How about that?
that's
I'm
he's
old.
awesome. I love
He,
Mark. Mark,
yeah,
he's such a good dude."
he is.
Uh, but he after the game, he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I know," and this was kind of where it became lighthearted, like I didn't need it anymore. He goes, "Hey, I know you asked for some like a reprieve, just to get your feet wet." He goes, then he gets really close. He goes, "But who the fuck else am I gonna pitch in this situation?" I'm like, "Okay." He's right. He was. I was the only one with experience. We had a bunch of guys banged up. Like, there, we didn't have a back end. There was nobody. We didn't even know who was going to close or whatever.
That's
So,
great.
uh, but him telling me that was like, he's like, "Hey man, you're just even anxiety version of you. I need you out there."
Yeah.
So I was like, cool. I went out and it was like kind of like something loosened up. And then my first save that year was the reverse boycott game. And when we're
Remind me
like,
what
oh, there's
happened.
40,000 people, uh, and
Oh
you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah. So they
close.
finally got fans. Yeah.
Yeah, they got fans in protest, and we're playing the Rays. I don't even remember Rays in 2023. They went like 30-1 to start the season, so they already destroyed us at their place, and we beat them a couple times. So we're on a heater. This is we're about to win our 7th game in a row, and we have like 12 total wins. so I go out there like, you're closing 2-1 against the best team in the league right now, and I remember looking around and saying the same thing, like, dude, this is awesome. Like, this is something all these people are going to remember being at. This is unique for them. Just go do the job. And I remember like throwing 96 every pitch, punch that series to end the game, and just like, and then I let myself celebrate
Oh,
probably for the first time in my career.
did
And
you? No. Let me ask you a
it,
question. Did you
yeah,
the time you spent on the IL? You don't have to go into any detail you don't want, but like, what were you doing to try to get back? Like, I know what I was doing, but I was just curious. Like, I'm assuming you learned some things.
oh yeah, oh yeah, tons of things. And full disclosure, I'd done a lot of this work before. So I got together with the EAP for the A's, and it's funny. Our first meeting, I presented my plan to him, and he was like, "Oh, you've read stuff," and I was like, "I've read a lot of stuff." So he's like, "Oh, interesting," and some stuff he hadn't heard before. So it became really collaborative right away. So a lot of the things, it was a lot of trying to grapple with the life or death feeling. I've always been that way, really
Mhm.
high strung. Like, the way I reacted when I was younger, when things didn't go well, was like it was more intense than anyone else I've played with. It really took it hard. It ruined my day. For I couldn't wait to pitch again so I could get past it. And we addressed that. Like, we really looked at that. Like, why is that the feeling you get when you're done pitching, good or bad? Where does it come from? Full disclosure, I had some family stuff going on in the background as well, so that didn't help. Right, a lot of stuff happening, and I was already kind of convinced I was going to retire. So like, a lot of it was like, "What's the point, man? I'm done after this year." So I had to like, what can I give back to the game? What can I contribute to this team? Because I am the oldest guy. I have a lot of experience, and I go through this stuff. And these guys, like, I remember talking about it with the team as a group, and they were like, "What? Anxiety? You mean nervous?" Like, none of them knew what it was.
No.
So I was like, "There's something to be taught here, and I can help these guys." And that's what it switched in my mind. Like, dude, you're there. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you know that's the right decision. So why don't we change what we want to get out of this year a little bit more? Don't just try to get through it. What do you want to give,
Isn't it
and what
weird
do you
how
want
like,
to take with you?
sorry to cut you off. What you're saying is like you intentionally changed the meaning of baseball to you.
Yes.
And like I think that's I mean, it's the same exact thing that I had to do for myself, or constantly trying to do for myself. But it's like if you let the world, if you let the baseball world, but essentially the world in general, dictate like what's important to you. Like wins are important. Going to the playoffs is important. Money's important. Yes, I'm not going to argue with any of those things. But if that's all I focus on a daily basis, if all I focus on is winning baseball games, like it's life or death, making more money, those types of stuff, like I'm not enjoying each day at all,
Yeah.
you know. And like when I first came back with the Rockies, it was like I was just like no matter what, I was making more money than I was as a coach, right? I didn't care what it was. It was like I finally am not have to worry about filling up my car with gas right now. Like, not that I was at that point, but it's like you're worried about every little dollar you spend when you're not making a lot of money. It was like, oh, I cannot stress about that stuff. This is great. I get to have my family with me during a baseball season. I get to pitch in Major League Baseball. Like, I was just like so thankful to be there. The meaning was like, the wins and losses were fun. The wins are fun. Success is fun. But I realized when you step away for 7 years, people don't remember who won.
Exactly.
People don't remember.
No one cares as much as you.
I'm a pretty big baseball fan. Like as far as just like I track the game, and I have my whole life. Like if you just like throw out a year, like who won the 06, 05 World Series, I might, if I really dig,
White Sox, but that's neither
okay.
here nor there.
Sorry, bad one. 14 World Series.
That was the Giants.
I don't know. There you go. No,
but
yeah, Giants.
Again, I had to
I'm
think
just
about
saying,
it.
like, maybe that's not a good example, but you know,
And
like
Salvi popped up foul off of Bumgarner. I remember.
well, dadgummit, you're ruining my point, man.
Okay, I know what you mean,
No,
though.
my
Like
point is
nobody cares.
people forget stuff. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you're not,
it
because let's
really
just say
doesn't
this:
matter.
if you're not the team that won the World Series, or you weren't tracking your diehard team that you care about, a lot of stuff happens in baseball that feels really important. That 6 months after it happens, nobody else remembers.
Yeah,
But we let it affect our livelihood and our mental health and
and our
our
identity.
trajectory of our career. We're like, off that one pitch I threw back in 2011, I gave it up. And it's like, yeah, some diehard Red Sox fans could probably tell you what happened that day. But like, you know, once you kind of have kids and my wife loves to travel. We've like traveled to Europe. I've been to Europe a couple times, and you'll sit in a bar in like Spain, and you'll meet some people, and they're like, oh, you're American. What do you do? And I'll be like, oh, I play baseball. And like, I didn't even want to say it, right? Because one of the trips I was like in the middle of the Yips, and I just didn't want to talk about baseball. And I was like, play baseball. And they're like, what's baseball? Like you get out of it and you're just like, oh, there's the whole world. Baseball it feels so important when you're in it, which can be really fun, right? When it's going well, it's the funnest thing in the world. But when it's not going well, or you're making it bigger than it is and letting it dictate every bit of your happiness, it's horrible. And then it's just a good reminder to be like, there's a whole world out there that does not give a shit that I blew the game tonight. If you can let yourself get to that point.
Yeah, it's you have to learn it, and it takes You have to do it in the moment. It's all the skills you learn to pitch, right? Being present, not thinking about the future or the past. All these like things you need to be able just to pitch in general. You apply that then to also your how you manage your anxiety and stuff and your perspective and how do you get other perspectives. One big thing though, I completely forgot the kind of the I think the routine or the habit I got into. I'm a big journaler, but like my brain moves too fast for my hand. So I struggle to like keep up with myself when I'm writing. Like, so what I'll do is I just record myself talking. Surprise. So I had a GoPro, and on the way to the field every single day, I'd put it on the thing and literally have a conversation, just everything, just pour all the things that are pissing me off. I was pissed off about John Fisher and how he runs the team because I really love the security guards. I was into baking. I baked donuts. I bring them donuts like every Monday, and they were like, the fact that players like baking us donuts and bringing them, so they were all my buddies, but I just knew they were all going to lose their jobs, and it sucked. And he didn't say
Yeah.
anything, so like that really made me angry. I'm a big like justice, like there's
Yeah.
no justice. Like I feel for people, and that was frustrating all the time. But talking about it, I get there and I'd be like, okay, I've worked through the thought, and now I don't have to work through the thought at the field. I don't have to go like try to find somewhere to be alone so I can sort out my thoughts. Because like I mentioned, speed
What'd you
up.
do with all those videos?
Oh, I have them.
You do.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna to do something with them. I don't know yet. There might be
Wow.
a series where I release. A lot of them are good, man. I talk pitching too, like just like philosophy stuff, an idea I had. Like it is kind of embarrassing watching them back, but
No,
not a lot embarrasses me
I
anymore.
just, I would, yeah, I would probably say some stuff I wouldn't want public, but
I have a few things that aren't going to go in there.
yeah.
Probably a lot of swearing. But you're alone in your Jeep just screaming, or just like getting, and it worked. It worked a lot. And it wasn't even about venting. It was literally about the content of what I was saying. I needed to say it out loud, and be like, maybe it's this and that. And I'm literally my best bounce. I can have conversations with myself. I'm weird like that. But again, I'm not worried. It works. So I'm gonna keep
I
doing
love
it.
it.
I still do it
Hey,
to this day. Still do it to
someone,
this day.
someone that listens to this is gonna try it, and
I hope so.
it's probably gonna
Please
get him
not.
in a car accident, honestly. But uh,
Yeah,
it'll help.
don't look at the camera, just talk. You could also just do voice memos to do that too. AI can transcribe that crap for you now, so you don't even have to do anything. You can keep it if you want. I don't know why anyone writes with their hand anymore. All right, I have one last question before I let you go. This is a nice beefy long episode. I apologize for keeping you so long.
It's all good.
So you're a big proponent supporting players struggling with anxiety, and mental health, and the game has, I feel like, a long way to go. What's one thing you would like to see changing either like structurally or culturally that would you think would in baseball that would make maybe more guys open up about this stuff and just really address it?
Can we get rid of the pitch clock? 'Cause that'd be great.
That would be
I, did,
huge.
I It did not cause me a panic attack, but it caused me, I just a lot of anger issues.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't like
didn't
it.
help your elbow feel better, did it?
No, that too. You're throwing a pitch every 12 seconds. It's not good.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, that wasn't the answer. No, I think so. I think me being public with my anxiety, you following suit, but like trying to get the ball rolling with it. What I don't want is, you get the sense at times where there's like old school guys, coaches probably, right, that are
Mhm.
like, there's another anxiety. Oh, we got two
There
on our
we
team right
go.
now. Our roster's dropping like flies. Like,
Yeah.
that's not my intention. But that could very easily happen, right? Two or three guys on the same team at the same time, and it's going to be like, oh, this is a soft team, right? That's going to be
Yeah.
that could very easily be like, you pitched in New York. If the Mets had three guys on with anxiety got the IL at the same time, what do you think the
It would
headlines
be
are going to be?
mayhem.
I don't know if they
It
put
would.
it in headlines. So that's why I
I'm
think
sure
we're
the New
close.
York Post would really handle it well.
I think we're close though, right? Like general society, I think you have to see enough guys be public about it and then be somewhat honest, to the media, which is freaking hard, right? Especially in those
Mhm.
cities, right? It's what I did in Colorado where like everybody's super nice and it's easy. To do it in New York, Boston, Philly would be very challenging, even like for me. Um, because you have to know, like, I got like these softball questions about it, but in New York, Boston, you're going to get like some pointed questions like, when did you start to feel it? What are your symptoms? When do you think you'll be back? Like, those are hard
Kind of wish I
questions.
would have done it in New York, frankly,
Oh,
because
man.
I would have loved to be able to get in front of that audience and be like, I had a panic attack where I walked around the clubhouse and my teammates were literally afraid of me because I was
Yeah.
just like, ah, like I was a ogre walking
Yeah.
around. They saw me and I didn't care, and I would say that. I said it publicly. I'll say it again.
Yeah. I think it's probably going to take like some really big name guys. Look at
Yeah,
us. I mean, we're not middle relievers. No, I'm just kidding. But, I think if a big name guy who's shown that they are a clutch, tough, just general like mental badass dude, and then they have this moment where they struggle and they're public about it, and then they go back to being the guy they were.
mhm.
It's going to take a few of those, right? And that might not happen for 10, 15 years. I don't know. But
Like
if
like a prime example, like if Freddie Freeman had to go through a lot of that stuff, like with his son,
oh
and there
my
was a lot
gosh.
of like being in the field makes me feel like I'm not doing that and giving him anxiety, and he did that, no one would blink, like because obviously there's a lot going on. We know about it, but maybe we didn't know about that. Say that's going on in the background, but no one knows, and he doesn't want anyone to know, and he just can't focus on the game, and he
Yeah,
went in the anxiety L. I think he would be a pro because then he'd come back and just be Freddie Freeman again.
right.
You would wonder, but like he would be that's like an example in my head, the type of thing.
Oh, that's exactly it. But that's what so the feelings that would be normal to feel when your son's, going through a life-threatening deal,
Yeah.
people feel very similar feelings from way less.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you don't get to decide what gives you anxiety. That's the
Yeah. Your
unfortunate
work.
thing. You
Yeah.
want anxiety to be like, yeah, my child's sick and I lost my job, like hard life stuff, right? But sometimes it's like things that some people would consider like not that big a deal, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that sucks when you're the one going through it, and you're like, I don't think this. Like at times, like I would look at myself and be like, this isn't even that bad. Like where your next meal is coming from. Like
Yeah.
you could retire tomorrow and pretty much be fine, like financially, and you're living in a nice house and your family's healthy and you got healthy kids. Like I would tell myself that and be like, snap out of it. But the anxiety, like where it's affecting your brain, it doesn't care.
It
It
doesn't care. Yeah.
once it decides we're going down this path, you're going to go down that path.
Yeah.
And
Can't explain it away. You can't logic it away.
no,
That's
no,
by
I
its
wish you
nature.
could. I wish you could, and everybody tries to, and that's we're way off path from the original question, but yeah, I think us doing it, some very high profile guys at some point,
Yeah.
making that
We
choice
can do. Mm.
is going to yeah, ultimately I wanted people to be able to just use it as, oh, sorry, I get sidetracked here, but the yips, anxiety, mental health labels, right, that people get,
Mhm.
once you go through it publicly, it's really hard to get like signed again, right? That's the worry, right? If I had a year where I struggled with the yips, even if I throw another good year or two, people are still going to be like, that's the guy with the yips, right?
Yeah.
And I think that still happens to a degree, right? Unless you're really, really good when you come back, then they can forget it. But if you're still like an up and down guy, what I would love for it to get to is like a guy's a free agent. And it's like, oh, that guy had shoulder problems 3 years ago, but he's pitched healthy for the last 3 years. Like, I'm not worried about it. We get an MRI like to make sure he's good, but like we trust him. He's shown us for 3 years. Whereas I feel like with mental health stuff, the way it's been, and I think I'm trying to change this, and this is another reason I'm trying to pitch again, right? Like, I want you to be able to have that on your resume. Yeah, he struggled with this at one time, but he came back and proved he's fine. Because the more people that do that, then it's going to be able to be like, yeah, he had that knee issue back in the day, but we're still going to sign him because he's shown us he's healthy. Just like you do a physical injury.
Yeah.
I wish it could. I wanted to get to that point.
it's a thing you work through. It can be worked through. It's not a disease. Like it's not a chronic, incurable disease. It's a thing you work through, just like you work through
Yeah.
anything else.
And just
And
like anything else, if you just take a break or just don't tell anyone and hope your hamstring heals and don't do anything to help it heal, it might heal a little and you could fake it for a little while, but it ain't really healed, you know?
yeah,
And I feel like
yeah,
this is the same thing. Like the more you're just open and then you take proactive steps to get better at this stuff and work on how you process thoughts and emotions, you get better at that stuff, you'll be stronger than you were before. It's like someone going through TJ and they come back throwing harder. The same thing happens like with the mental game, like without a doubt.
yeah. You learn strategies and you employ them later. And when things crop up, like a prime example, dude, you were like, "Hey, instead of just getting through this thing, I have to take action and give myself a break because I've seen this movie before." And that is an example of you growing from it. Even if it did crop up again and it got to the point where you had to miss some time, it's not the same as last time. You're like, if I do this, maybe it won't last for 10 years. That'd be really nice, right? So it's just one of those things. Like you just have to address it. You got to address it.
Yeah,
You can't just bury it down deep. It's just like the same thing as physical and mental injuries
yeah,
are need to be treated the same way. I love that. I would
yeah,
highly encourage any guys at least have the conversation, right? If you need to find somebody you trust, talk to somebody in your organization, and at least talk through options. And that was really helpful for me. And it sounds like it was really helpful for you as well. Like that you had some support on that end, which allowed you to make the decision. So it's good to hear, and I'm really, dude, I'm really happy you agreed to do this because I'm glad that we got to talk about this. I've been waiting to talk about this for like over a year now, and I actually was kind of sad we didn't get to talk longer in the outfield that day and in Coors. So
yeah. Well, Luke always
and
had great things to say about you, and I watched your whole career from afar too, and like watch your dominant years in Minnesota and New York, and it's fun to watch, man.
thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot, and likewise, dude. I've always big fan. You were one of the guys. You were a young dude, got up. I was in my second or third year in the playing pro ball. I'm like, I want to be that guy. Like that you were that for us. So it's great to see you feeling better and you're getting back on the mound um and yeah, but I'm gonna leave it there because we've been going for a long time and I believe we got to go put my son down as well. So guys listening at home, please make sure you follow the show so you don't miss any episodes. In the future, we have one of these coming out every Wednesday. A couple of new guests coming soon. Sergio Romo, Rich Hill. I got all the old guys. We're gonna we you got to be 35 or older to be on this show.
Those are some
Um,
good ones, though.
we
Like,
got some good ones and some stories. There's some stories that coming. So thank you guys for listening. As always, drink your water, watch your baseball, and I'll see you next time on the Cut on the Diamond podcast. See ya.